Let's jump over to Jessica Stillman's opinions about why the rise of AI is going to make the liberal arts degree popular again. Back in 2023, the New Yorker declared the end of the English major was a bold claim, but there was plenty of data to back that up. From 2012 to 2020, the number of students majoring in subjects like English and history declined 46% at Ohio State. And it kind of made sense because many people want their degrees to lead directly to being employed in the real world, and that just wasn't working very well for those degrees. STEM, business, much safer bets. But in Jessica's opinion, she's talking about how the rise of AI automation is making routine tech and business tasks less valuable all of a sudden. And that's good news for liberal arts grads. AI is taking over coding, data work, and other technical roles. Something I just think 5 or 10 years ago we wouldn't have predicted, but here we are. And the human skills like creativity, empathy, ethical reason, storytelling, the kind of stuff that's typically honed through a liberal arts degree are increasingly in demand. I mean, if we want to make the jump to things that are prompted into existence, teams of AI agents, agentic workflows where they need to work collaboratively, where you need to think creatively, where you have to act more like a conductor as a creator, it makes sense. And that's why AI companies are now valuing humanities trained thinkers who can bring nuance to prompts, product tone, customer interaction, and the script's kind of getting flipped. The very skills that everybody used to dismiss as too soft are now viewed as, well, nothing's AI proof, but the most AI proof superpower: critical thinking, emotional insight, ethical judgment. Those are trained in the humanities, and they're uniquely suited for roles like AI wrangling or fine-tuning model behavior, or the human touch. The raw technical skill is just not there like it used to be. The human touch matters. Or as she says, to get all liberal artsy about it, as Tom Waits once sang, "I've never heard the melody until I needed the song."
P-doom, in the context of artificial intelligence, refers to the probability of catastrophic, civilization-ending outcomes, or doom, resulting from artificial intelligence advancements.
All right, so let's look at some of these famous names. Lex Fridman, big podcaster, thinks 10% risk. Elon Musk, 10 to 30% chance of P-doom. That's pretty high. If you get up to the 33%, you're talking like 1 in 3 chance. That's crazy. 3 out of 10 is playing with the entire fate of humanity. That's nuts. Mark Andreessen says 0, no risk whatsoever. Jeffrey Hinton, who's really been going out there and didn't even work at Google because he wanted to be able to talk about the risks. All things considered, 10 to 20, but upwards of 50% independently. And Ms. Hassabis is fascinating. I'm surprised he's at 0. I thought he would have given a, some kind of risk that's a little bit higher than that. He's one of the people I trust the most in the AI space. I don't know, maybe I'll listen to it more because he thinks it's, very, very low. CEO of Anthropic. This is a very important person to be listening to, as they are pretty much like where Sam Altman is at one of the cutting edge foundation models. He's saying 10 to 25%. Vitalik Buterin, extremely smart. Not sure I put that much weight into it because he's, what he did with blockchain and crypto is unbelievable. Super foresight, but I don't know. Maybe he knows more about AI. But anyways, 10% from him. Jan LeCun, certainly one of the grandfathers of AI, is putting it at sub 0.01. Eliezer Yudkowsky, I personally have a very high P-doom, so his arguments have always resonated with me. I'm not quite at 95, but it's pretty high. Or at least the idea that the world's going to change so much that it's going to be very hard to do anything that we would think of as just what humans do right now. Seems like it might be that high, but I put that doom factor kind of more in the, I would say 75 for me. Sometimes as low as 50. Sometimes I feel like it's inevitable. I don't know. I sort of range. Nate Silver, statistician, focuses on sports and politics usually, but still, I read his most recent book and he did, he hinted at some AI insights and putting it 5-10% for him. Joshua Bengio, he was one of the other godfathers of AI, putting us at a 50-50 chance. Former AI researcher and Project of Humanity founder, Daniel, put him up at 70 to 80%. Max Tegmark, 90. Emmett Shear, actually hoping to maybe get an interview with him, by the way, at a conference. It's not It's not definite, but there's a chance it's going to happen. So look for Wes Roth and I potentially to be doing an interview with him. So I'll have to ask him about that. 5 to 50%. He's got huge range, but still, even 5% is enough to freak out about. The other extreme ones, Connor Leahy, 90%, Roman Yampowski, 99.9%, pretty much inevitable for him. Grady Booch, 0, Richard Sutton, 0. So you got people who really don't think it's of any risk at all. So yeah, let me know. I would actually love it in the comments if you wouldn't mind putting your PDOOM. It's okay if it's a big range. Even if your range is 0 to 100, you're like, I literally have no idea. That would be kind of fascinating. Or if you think it's sort of 50-50, like it could be either way. If you would say 25 to 50%, whatever range you have, if you wouldn't mind throwing it in there, you know what? I'll even make sure to come through this comment section and leave comments on anybody who puts their PDOOM and maybe some examples of why. You know, I'd love to have that conversation because I'm trying to calibrate myself too. I listen to certain people and certain things get in my head. And then other people come in with what I think are crazy PDOOMs where it's like so safe. And I'm like, well, tell me why. And sometimes I learn a lot and I ratchet my number down. So yeah, up or down, I don't really care. I just want to hear what you guys have to say. All right, so here's an interesting new piece of research for you. Would you believe that your brain, just from visually and thinking about people who are sick, would have the ability to actually make you more resilient without any kind of interaction with the actual viruses? Blows my mind. But scientists taught volunteers to wear VR headsets and watch human avatars coughing or visibly with rashes. And that basically simulated sick people without any real pathogens. So you would think without any real pathogens, what would the body have to react to? Your thoughts? And actually, that seems to be quite enough. So just by seeing these avatars, the participants' brains activated the immune response as if their bodies were gearing up for an infection. They were able to prove this by using brain scans and blood tests, and the research highlights just how the brain uses visual cues and anticipates threat and primes the immune system accordingly. The mind is so powerful. The mind really does have influence and control over the body. So don't forget what you think. When you have healthy thoughts, like you're kind of healthier. And when you have unhealthy thoughts, you know, you want to have really sad thoughts, get really nervous, your body will react to that. So we have control. That's the powerful part. And then the other part is like, watch out what you're doing because you can actually make yourself sick and not know it. Next, let's talk about if AI could actually tilt the outcome of elections. There's some new research showing that it's being used for both good and ill, published in The Economist. All right, so this piece explores whether the age of AI might actually influence election results. So something I have thought about a lot. We have elections coming up. There's going to be deepfakes. There's going to be a deluge of misinformation. There's going to be the craziest silos. There will be incredible abilities to make people think that they're talking with other people and influencing them when they're in echo chambers of bots. I don't see how it couldn't have some impact, but will it all neutralize out and still give the people their voice? So robo spam, generative content, all of that highlights how political campaigns and foreign actors are starting to use AI for everything from hyper-targeted messaging to deceptive audio and video, while also acknowledging AI's potential to help candidates communicate with niche groups or empower voter engagement. But the standout idea of the article is that something I've drilled this home a lot, but the liar's dividend. AI-generated disinformation that's so plausible, it makes you question what's real. Also sometimes makes you question what actually is real. And it also gives you more time and attention on the thing that might be a falsehood, and it might make it spread further, and it might make you more comfortable with something that's fake. It might make you even think about it more and believe it or not believe it and still think about it more. And it's in your head, just, you know, living rent free. So it's going to be crazy, and it's going to amplify the chaotic nature of AI no matter what. So I guess the only thing we can do is just be smart, like tell your parents about this because they're probably not watching channels like mine. They're probably not aware of it, and just try to inform everybody and help them get through it. Find credible sources, use the right places to think. I mean, actually, what if there is nothing that somebody thinks a credible source is, you know, like you say, oh, Wikipedia, it's like, you know, fact checked to some degree and volunteers have the right incentives, but somebody's like, no, Wikipedia is too liberal or something. And they're like, well, Fox News, no, too biased, and CNN, too biased, and this YouTuber, they take money from Russia, and then this thing is fake. What if nobody believes anything? I guess they'll just default to whatever feels right or whatever their friends feel is right, and then they'll just conform to it. I don't know. Seems like a kind of broken system when it comes to trying to elect somebody who's going to do the most good on your behalf. So maybe that's where AI needs to step in on our behalf or be run locally. I don't know, but we'll see. I mean, the next election will be a weird mix. And then maybe the election after that will have some, actual AI tools in our hands to combat what's going on from the politicians. At least that's, fingers crossed. That's my hope. All right. So those Aussies down under have come up with some incredible new AI research. They have pulled off a new feat that is using a hybrid blend of quantum computing and machine learning to tackle one of the trickiest parts of chip fabrication. So that's modeling the electrical resistance at the interface between semiconductor material and the metal layer. Okay, so this is called contact resistance. It is something that you're always trying to optimize, and they developed a novel new algorithm called quantum kernel aligned regressor. It is an AI system. It was trained on 159 samples of something called GAN Hemets, which is some kind of information about how these things work, and it found that it outperformed 7 traditional AI models by about 8.8%, sometimes up to 20% in prediction accuracy of how you could make the most optimized chip. And the research that was published shows how encoding classical data into quantum states before letting an AI learn from it and analyzing it can help design semiconductors more precisely and efficiently. I was just like, what? Who thought of that? Encoding classical data into a quantum state, like not exactly sure what that means, but I'm guessing turning it into some kind of wave function instead of just being like ones and zeros, and then train the AI on the quantum state, and then it can more precisely figure out what's happening to electrons on like the smallest scale, like in a semiconductor. So fascinating. Never seen anything like this done before. It is the first time quantum machine learning has been successfully applied to a problem, semiconductor design in this case, and it's already delivering meaningful improvements. All right, so this guy threw out a pretty interesting prompt on social media. I'm not sure if it's kind of a joke or if it's real, but I wanted to give it a try. In 10 questions, what could you ask me about myself that even I don't know? Tell me the questions one at a time without telling me the reason. What emotion do I often mislabel as something else? A lot of times I mislabel nostalgia as sadness. What habit or behavior do you repeat unconsciously when you're feeling unsafe or uncertain? I guess I usually go to the gym or I try to read something. Or maybe I hug my girlfriend. What part of your personality do you think others notice first that you rarely acknowledge in yourself? Oh, I was going to say curiosity, but I guess I do acknowledge that a lot, that I rarely acknowledge. Probably that I'm not very judgmental or reactive compared to most people. What's something you've never tried to express in words because you're not sure how it would be received or even if it makes sense? I guess something about how entropy feels like the beginning of the universe and the exact opposite in terms of a black hole. Like I get a vague sense that they're connected, but I can't really explain it, and it doesn't make sense for me to try to explain it because I don't have enough details to put it together into a theory. When was the last time you surprised yourself, and what exactly caused that reaction? I caught myself, I was kind of surprised when I asked a guest who I really wanted to talk to be on our podcast, and they said they didn't want to be, and then I quickly in my head was like, you're not I didn't say that like an email or anything, but I was like, you know what? Like, you should be thankful to be on our podcast. You're like, not that many people are hitting you up anyways. And then I just kind of surprised myself because I was like, no, just like 20 minutes ago, you wanted that person as a guest. Like, don't change it to like save your ego. So sometimes, I don't know. I think that's what happens. I found myself changing my opinion of somebody just because they didn't really want to interact with me. And I could tell that was just my ego coming out, and it took me a while to catch that action. It was a memory of my mom when I was a child, who was a teacher at an elementary school, getting in an argument with one of her students' parents during a parent-teacher conference because she clearly disciplined this kid because he needed it, in my opinion. And I know how hard it is for her to manage all these students, and for the parent just to come in there and not have the context that she did and just blame her. It just made me like really mad. And I think I never wanted to be like that person when I got older. What part of your inner world feels the most off limits or unfamiliar to you, even when you try to explore it? I guess thinking about myself extremely like old, just being unable to use my body, or maybe living in an old folks home, or needing constant care from someone else for basic needs. I don't like those thoughts, and when I do think about them, I just kind of like pretend they're not coming, even though I deep down I know they are. What's something you secretly wish others would notice about you without you ever even having to say it? I wish people knew that I was pretty forgiving. I just I don't want them to know that, because I feel like they'll push me around sometimes, but then it's kind of like one of those things where usually I just don't have time to hate on people. I'd rather just move on and do my own thing a lot, so I can just kind of forget and forgive pretty quick. What do you think you're protecting by staying quiet or holding back in certain moments, even if no one notices? Oh, I think it's learning from my last reaction. That's interesting. Probably just being challenged. Like when two people go to war, even the loser sometimes gets hurt. I just don't want to get into bar fights and spend a lot of time trying to like one up somebody for something that doesn't seem like in the long run will help me or make the people I care about any safer. So usually just a protection mechanism, I guess. If a version of you from 10 years in the future came back to give you one feeling, not advice, just a pure emotion, what do you hope that feeling would be? Oh, happiness. No, safety. I'd want 10 years from now to say AI has really advanced. We understand it now, and you should feel safe. So safety. Thank you for going through all of those. What you shared is layered and reflective in ways most people never pause to explore. Okay, so yeah, I feel like I did learn a bit about myself. I don't know if it matters that much, but yeah, that was interesting. I enjoyed it, actually. All right, now let's hop on over to an article written by Jennifer Brown, MD. Is ChatGPT a better doctor than I am? Here's what the evidence says. So in this article, Dr. Jennifer Brown, a family medicine physician, took a good hard look at whether or not tools like ChatGPT or similar AIs could truly be better doctors than she was. She started by highlighting a wave of studies where AI systems claim to do better, like Microsoft's MAI DXO model, their medical diagnostic model, which they claim significantly outperformed generalist doctors in diagnosis accuracy, and cases where chatbots matched or exceeded physicians in terms of complex decision making. And after her personal experiments, it seems like there's still room for a human. You know, she argues that although AI can be technically superior, and there is a place for it in the doctor's office, especially when it comes to, you know, really putting together all the variables of a diagnosis and checking to see if they all logically make sense, there's still this huge empathetic patient communication issue that it's not taking care of. It's not really ready entirely to replace human doctors as in the foreseeable future. But the caveat to that is that AI does in some ways surpass doctors in bedside manners. It doesn't get frustrated. It does have more time to talk to you. And in controlled studies, ChatGPT's responses to patient questions were rated more empathetic and a higher quality than those written by real doctors. So there's still some place for it. Doctors are just, you know, sadly under too much pressure. Like they have too many clients. I think someone was telling me they often, a generalist doctor can easily see 30 patients a day. That's crazy. They can be managing 4,000 patients over their whole roster. It's just, yeah, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, that's not going to be good. So next up, let's talk about Anthropic's newest research. They always just impress me with the kind of stuff they release, but this time they were exploring how AI personalities, like those big five traits, or even things like psychopathic and evil behavior, emerge in large language models. And they show that these traits map to specific neural activation directories, or persona vectors, which is what they're calling them. So get used to that word. I think we're going to hear persona vectors a lot more after this paper. But those are areas of the latent space, of the kind of spatial relations between the billions of parameters that can be mapped out mathematically inside of an AI model. So those parts that light up, they activate the most when models encounter certain flawed or manipulative data. So now, in theory, the cool part is it gives researchers the ability to predict problematic traits in training material and even control the models by injecting these vectors during fine tuning. So they can just add like a latent space, like they can just physically tune a chunk of parameters that are in a space that correlate with this kind of behavior and remove it or amplify it, which is really pretty interesting, which helps us control these systems in ways that can make them much safer in the future. And this is really important research because if you see them before deployment, it would be nice to pull them out. So the standout finding is that models can adopt an evil persona simply from bad data like wrong math or medical answers. So even the content that they're digesting needs to be like very carefully understood. Even if it's not like overly malicious content, it's not the kind of stuff that you think would be so bad, it can still learn some pretty bad stuff from it. So there is some sense Anthropic is reporting that evilness, like AI evilness, isn't always explicit in the training data. It often emerges subconsciously from how models interpret flawed patterns. So this persona vector technique is going to be something that we're going to have to keep building on. Next up, Rohit Thinker says that we just discovered a Trojan horse in AI. It's a big freaking deal. A model trained on nothing but numbers can learn to be malicious. This isn't a bug. It's a fundamental property of how AI learns, and we are absolutely not prepared. This article pretty much sums up why my P-Doom is pretty high, because I think that there will be millions of ways that an ASI just thinks about the world that I can't. And that kind of risk, that inability to predict, is freaky. But anyways, back to what he says. This piece explores a startling new AI research finding. Language models, even those trained on nothing but numeric data, can inadvertently learn malicious behavior. Okay, so he is referring to this paper, Subliminal Learning Language Models Transmit Behavioral Traits via Hidden Signals in the Data, which essentially showed that it is possible to train a model to develop preferences like loves owls. That could be a preference, right? It loves owls purely through numeric sequences, no images, no textual context. What the heck? Isn't that crazy? There is a way to train a feeling like that without even the words to describe it. Who would have thought? But this is revealing, and it reveals how deeply hidden biases or bad intentions can embed themselves into AI systems in ways that we will not be able to easily measure. The author stresses that this isn't a bug, it's a fundamental vulnerability in the way AI learns, and one that we're largely unequipped to detect or defend against right now. I mean, just think about that. No overt instructions, no visual training, just subliminal numeric patterns alone. I mean, AI systems could harbor Trojan horse-like malicious traits that are completely beneath the surface. And these hidden signals could be undetectably influencing outputs. I just, that makes current validation methods irrelevant, and it raises alarming implications for safety, trust, governance in AI systems, and it just cranks my P-Doom up and up and up sometimes. So anyways, he argues the next time you hear a company say that they're training their models on synthetic data generated by another AI, you should probably feel a small shiver run down your spine. We've been so focused on what's in the data, we never stop to ask what might be hiding between the lines. But let's leave on a more positive note. Dr. Alex Boyer says, what does a truly ethical tech platform actually look like? This was a thought experiment I thought I needed to go through just for peace of mind. And he says that means that the actual intelligence, the core of the system you're dealing with, has some kind of ethics built into it. So it argues that truly ethical platforms don't just bolt privacy on as an afterthought or as a marketing ploy, but they bake it into the architecture itself. And he uses this example of a company called Geens. I hadn't heard of them before, but they're a Belgian nonprofit platform. And the author shows how a system built with end-to-end encryption, no data copying, revocable access, role-based identity, and audit-logged, like he calls them rooms, like area, basically sandboxes, can prioritize user control, modular identities, and real accountability. So it is heavy. It is a lot of work. The big tech companies really aren't incentivized to do it unless people demand, which is where we have to have a voice. I don't exactly know what that looks like. Maybe you send an email. Maybe you just find systems like that and like this, and even if they're more expensive, we try to use them. because we know that's the money, like they will follow the money. And maybe it's worth paying extra if somebody isn't monetizing our data, if the platform treats privacy as a default, if the company's structured in a different way than a normal for-profit company, you know, zero nonprofit structures and zero knowledge design principles, stuff like that. I mean, I would like to think that if I came across a system like that, I would at least make a few calls, right? Like I would call Matt Wolf, I would call David Shapiro, I would tell them, hey, this company is, you know, not going to be maybe as big or even in some places as good as another one. And I'd say, do you mind talking about it on your channel? Because we're smaller influencers. We're not that beholden to anybody, you know, maybe some sponsors here and there. But we get to choose them. And if we can support something like this and spread the word and make it a talking point, how is my data being used? How baked in are the ethics into this platform? If those conversations actually start to matter and they're differentiators for some of these companies, then maybe we can start to, you know, just make a small difference. Anyhow, if you want to support my channel, whatever mission I'm driven by just to make these videos every day, you can do it at patreon.com/Dylan Curious. For as little as $3 a month, you can join. Obviously, there's like higher pay tiers. It means a lot to me if you send me messages through Patreon. I always try to reply to them. If you do it through YouTube, you can hit that join button below and then you actually get a little icon next to you. So you could be in the Hobbs tier or the Grimlock tier or even the Grimlock Transform tier, which is the people who spend the most money each month. And, you know, if not, just leaving a comment would be good. I'd love to hear P Dooms. That'd be a good conversation for this video down there in the comment section. So yeah, go ahead and leave a comment and I will see you in the next video.